Yeah. Here it is.
I will call to order the Personnel Policy Curriculum Committee meeting, which was duly noticed on December 4th, 2023, through the posting and notification of the press in accordance with Wisconsin 19.84. Notice is hereby given that school board members who are not members of this committee may attend this meeting so as to constitute a quorum of the Board of Education. Any such member attendance will be for information gathering only and will not result in direct decision-making by the Board of Education at the committee level. That was a mouthful. Safety message. I gotta pull that up. I thought about what were some winter safety messages, and I looked on the Department of Human Services Wisconsin.gov, and they had different topics, but one of them was sledding, and that is a fun activity that many families like to engage in, and there's a whole bunch of safety things to consider, and I'm not going to read them all, but I'm going to go over a few because I think sometimes we don't think about these things, or kids don't. Be sure that the hill is free of obstacles such as trees, signs, fences, poles, drop-offs, and rocks. Do not slide into parking areas, roadways, rivers, or lakes. Always ride sitting facing forward. Going down head first increases the chance of head and spinal injuries. And I didn't really ever think about that before, but many of us, including myself, have gone down face, head first, and I didn't think about it increases our injury risk, so that will be taken into consideration. Tuck in arms and legs and loose clothing, such as scarves and drawstrings. Obviously, dress appropriately. Children under 5 should have an adult on the sled with them. And it talks about different types of sleds, but one of them, the inflatable tubes, are actually significantly more dangerous, and you can't control them as easily. So sleds with runners or steering are preferred. And walk up the side when returning to the top of the hill so that you are not knocked off by others who are on the way down. But if you get out sledding this year, let me know if you have any good sledding hills. We found a good one. What's that park? It used to be the Boy Scouts of America camp. It's now like,
Oh, yeah, it's a
what's
new
it
park.
called? Oh, shoot. I know what it's called. It's north of Highway 14 on the river. Lisa's probably going to look it up. I've been there. They have a really nice hill that is not so scary for sledding. So kind of a good family one if you don't have people who are looking.
Heritage County Park?
Yes, Heritage County Park. But maybe I shouldn't have told people that because,
Not everyone's gonna go there.
yeah, people might go there. Okay.
Slow sledding right now.
Yeah, well, I mean, we don't have to worry about it. I hope that there's some snow for sledding this year. Okay, moving on, everyone. I need a motion to adopt the December 4th, 2023 agenda as presented.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Kevin is absent, maybe, or Commissioner Murray is absent. Hopefully, we will see him. Okay, moving on with update on the sale process. Dr. DeGraff and Mr. Medenwalt. Thank you so much.
Good afternoon. Last year, we had an opportunity during a board workshop to share with you a little bit about the district sale process that we began last year as a district team and some of our action steps and 100-day plan. And so tonight, we want to share a little bit of an update with you, again, on our district sale process and our goals and our action steps. As well as we've brought a couple of our school teams here today and principals representing those school teams who have been engaging in the sale process. So they can share with you a little bit about their goals that they're focusing on and action steps to continue to help to focus on that student growth and achievement. So our district goals focused on increasing that number of students that were proficient in literacy and math. And we also have focused on increasing attendance and chronic absenteeism. And so we want to continue with those goals again this year, along with reading and math and attendance. But we've made a few changes and adjustments to those goals. So, as I mentioned, the district teams went for the second year in the summer for our SAIL training, and so that gave us some extensive time to really dig into our school goals, look at our data, determine what some of our strengths were and areas of growth. And as we looked at our goals, we had had a literacy goal, and our literacy goal was looking at increasing the percent of students that were proficient on STAR, and then increasing the number of students in Algebra 1 that had a C or higher. So based on our district goals, we saw some increases in our literacy growth at specific grade levels, and we saw a significant increase in our math data, and those students achieving a C or higher. But what we noticed as we looked at that data is that goal didn't necessarily translate into what we saw that growth and achievement on the state report card. So as part of that SAIL process this summer, we determined that we wanted to measure our goals so that they aligned with the state report card. So as we are still measuring literacy and math, our ELA goal is focused on increasing our percentage of students proficient on Forward. And our math goal is focusing on increasing those students' proficiency as well in the pre-ACT and ACT. So we feel that those goals better align with what the state report card is asking us to measure our students for student growth and achievement. And so along with that work, as we looked at our strengths and areas of goals, we developed our specific action steps around the type of professional development we would be doing with our administrative team. We also looked at creating those monthly meetings where Chris and myself and Kim go out and meet with each SAIL team as well to look at their data, look at their action steps and the progress they're making towards them, and so that we can also as a district help support them in any resources or tools that they may need to help achieve their goals as well. So that was kind of our main focus in the summer as we revisited our SAIL process as a district team and reestablished and updated our goals and action steps. We also went in November, and so Chris is going to talk to you briefly about that.
Good evening. I'm going to talk a little bit about when our directors went up to Wisconsin Dells for our SAIL workshop a few weeks ago. And the first thing that we did actually was well before we got there and we decided to make a change in our team makeup. We thought it was important for us to get feedback from principals. So from all the way back to over a year ago, we had taken the directors team along and to do some things. And this time what we did is we asked some of our directors if it was time better spent for them to remain back and for us to invite some of our principals, one from each level, to come along and give us some feedback on some of the leadership moves that we thought we were going to make and some of the professional development we thought that not our staff needed or our principals needed. And I would say in general we thought of all the decisions we made, that's probably the best decision we made. The conversation was allowed to go in some different directions because we had input from our buildings that we didn't have previously. And ultimately that's where we wanted our work to go. So we had plenty of conversations about our relevant data. One of the things that SAIL comes up often in SAIL academies and workshops is, are you lucky or are you leading? And sometimes, it's really nice to be lucky, but you don't know how you got there. So we worked really hard on how do we lead and what do we do. And we, at the time, if you look at that date, you'll know that later on that evening, you had a board workshop about the school report card. And so we had already had the report card data. And so that was part of the data that we were looking at. It was data we hadn't had when we went up in the summer. And so we were able to dig in a little bit and look at what some of it meant and what we wanted to do to change some things. And I wouldn't say we changed dramatically what we wanted to do, but we had great feedback from our principals about timing of some things. Sometimes if you've been in some planning workshops, it's really easy to start thinking, well, hey, we'll do A and then we'll do B and we'll do C and we'll do D. Like you get real excited about all the stuff you can do. And having the principals there was very helpful for them to say, I'm not sure everybody can handle everything you're thinking about throwing. So maybe let's think about what's scalable and doable. So it was very, very helpful. So we changed a little bit, maybe retimed some of our professional development that we planned to do, in particular some of the professional development we plan to do with our principals. We asked our principals to give us some feedback on some of that professional development. We'll ask for some more actually this Thursday to do so, and for us to get to our next steps. The other thing we did is we invited the 3 principals we took along to, we have monthly meetings as a small directors team to look at what our sale progress is, and we asked them, would it be helpful for you to participate virtually or participate in person? Again, just trying to make sure that we have more input and can make better plans so that we are leading instead of lucky. So as Allison mentioned, we did invite some principals to come and talk about their sale experiences. So we'll talk a little bit about each of our levels and some of their experiences in sales so far. So go ahead.
Hi. So at the elementary level, our teams are really working to identify significant learning needs and those possible root causes. So really, we're able to deepen our discussions as a team to identify the barriers that are in place for our students when it comes to their learning. Through the SAIL plan, we utilize a detailed framework to narrow our focus, similar in aligning it with our district focus of having our reading and our math goals. But we were able to tweak out those essential needs and set those goals. But that the framework that they provide through SAIL really provides us accountability. So making sure that, we developed a theory of action plan and a 100-day plan with specific steps, starting small, in order to reach our goal. So in that accountability piece to our team, but also that accountability piece to our internal coach that we meet with regularly. The SAIL plan, or the SAIL process too, has really helped us deepen our adult learning and collaboration. We're making shifts in our adult practices in our building. Obviously then that will impact our student learning. We're able to build teacher capacity and really creating a coherent culture within our building. So overall, it's been a positive experience so far for us at the elementary level.
Good evening. I'm Amanda Spranger from Edison Middle School, and through the SAIL process for us, as you know, we adopted a new schedule this year at the middle school, and that has really provided the 3 middle schools as an opportunity to come together and be a cohesive team across the district. So for us, as we went through this process, it really became a question of how do we get better at building a collaborative culture around student learning. And the answer to that was through professional learning communities and the professional learning teams with a specific focus on common formative and summative assessment. So the work we're doing this year, I see Chris has up there that our PLTs are using data. In the past, a lot of our PLT time was used for day-to-day planning. And yes, that's important, but at the end of the day, how do we know if our students are learning what we're putting in front of them? So this year we're shifting to some grade level meetings. For Edison, it's twice a month, and that's guided practice as we look at formative assessments, going through some data protocols so that staff can look at what are the misconceptions our students are having, and then what is going to be our instructional response to those misconceptions. What are the strategies that we're going to put in place to help the students? A big piece of this is that flex hour, which was intended to be enrichment and intervention time. And so a lot of the work that we're doing is ensuring that that is academic support based on those formative assessments. And so twice a month, staff are coming together, at least in our presence as admin, to look at those formative assessments and then identify students that are missing or have some gaps, and then using that flex time to fill that for not only math and reading, but all content areas.
One of the things I will say that the three middle school principals have done is they have been very tight on things happening. Even the use of the protocol Amanda was referencing gets used in all three buildings, and how they've even developed professional development together, and that happens in all three buildings. So they've really gotten very tight on some of the things they do. Allison Bion was going to be with us tonight. She had some things come up that she wasn't able to be here, so I'm going to talk really briefly on some of their sale plans. One is ACT alignment, and you've heard me talk about this before. We're using some software called Mastery Prep, which allows us to gauge where our students would be on the ACT and pre-ACT, and that has been part of what their planning has been, is how often do we administer that, what do we do with the data, how does that focus into our PLTs, and what we need to do. It's nice because Mastery Prep gives us basically the top three, right? So we'll look at something in English and language arts, and they'll go, hey, here's in ninth grade, here's your top three areas where you need the most work. And then we can see, well, where does that fit? Is it really not that big a deal? Because of course they wouldn't know that yet in September, or is this something like, yeah, we got to fix this pronto. So that part has been good. The other thing that they've done is gone through professional learning team coaching cycles, basically intensive of getting in and touching base with their professional learning teams, and where are we today? What data are we looking at? What are we going to build next? How does that get into the classroom? What are the instructional strategies we're going to do with that? And then the third part that is not up here, but that they have worked pretty diligently on, is some professional development for AVID strategies school-wide. And how does that build in? And so that's been part of their 100-day planning. Really, those three things are the real big bricks for them, and what they've worked on to begin with, and to be data-driven. Allison is going to take us home. That's what you're going to do. That's what it's called.
Just sail on home, right?
That's right.
Come sail away with me, yes, so. Yeah. Yes, so you've had an opportunity tonight to hear a little bit about our district sale team, as well as from our school sale teams. And so I think what you can hear from Sarah at Jackson and Amanda at Edison, and then what Craig is doing too, is as we've really aligned our district goals, they've been able to align their building goals to that. And then it trickles or cascades down into the classroom level, because as you heard both of them mention, they're spending a lot of time as part of their action steps in their sale plan for their teachers to be in professional learning teams, looking at their data, and then using that data to make instructional decisions around the students that are increasing in proficiency or are not, and how will they address and change those. So I think it's really important that as we have our district sale plan and our building sale plans, that we're really ensuring that we're trying to align our system and our goals to continue to support that continuous improvement throughout our district. So we'll take a minute if you have any questions or feedback.
Thank you very much. This looks really good and focused. I'm wondering, what does SAIL say, or if it says anything at all, about time for educators? Because, a lot of, data analysis takes time. Rethinking your strategy takes time. And, when you're spinning 10 plates, in the classroom and everything else, you're not necessarily thinking about all those details all simultaneously. So, how have we been able? Does SAIL recommend that? Have we been able to build time in?
Yes, it's a great question, and time is always the challenge. And so I think Amanda mentioned, and I'll even let Sarah or Amanda join in too, as well as, some of the things that they've had to do is around their building scheduling at the beginning of the year to ensure that grade levels have time during the day that is common to spend time collaborating and looking at this data. I think it's been a challenge, and we've also, as a district, had to work hard to talk about what, oh my gosh, sorry.
That's the song call.
You know, help as a district to help all of our staff understand that, you know, a lot of times we were used to just doing the planning piece and then not looking at the data. But we know from our data that our kids are not growing at the same rate of other kids in the state, and that's an area of growth for our district. So we have to move beyond just the planning and look at that data and talk about what do we need to change and adjust in order for those kids who are not growing, you know, to do something different and reassess them to see that they have that proficiency. But it's kind of rethinking what that instructional planning time looks like. And so based on that data that they have, and those adjustments they make, then they're planning differently. So they're planning, what are we gonna do for this group of students? Or what do we need to reteach, or what do we need to extend? So the planning time looks different as well. But it has been a challenge, and again, the building principals have worked hard at, you know, developing their building schedule in order to make that happen. So I don't know if Sarah or Amanda, you want to add anything about what that time looks like in your building and how you have helped teachers kind of rethink what that time looks like?
I know, so for us at the elementary, the biggest shift for us was creating that common time. So each of our grade level teams have a 45-minute common time within the scheduled day, to where we sit together as a PLT, professional learning team, and look at, we do analyze the data, and kind of talk about, all right, what are we seeing in individual classrooms? And then just having that conversation with teachers, professional collaboration. Hey, what are you doing in your classroom? I'm noticing your kids are excelling in this area. Give me some strategies that you're using so that way I can, you know, try and implement them. I would say the biggest thing with this sale, we haven't added a ton onto teachers' plates, but really narrowing our focus. Really, and for us at Jackson, narrowing our focus in on our guided reading structure and what that looks like. Giving teachers time within the day, opportunities to go in and observe their colleagues. We have so many professionals in our building that we can learn from, so just, you know, finding that time and the coverage for them to observe colleagues, see what's working in other classrooms, so then they can make small changes and shifts in their practices.
Yeah, I would also second the fact that this whole sale plan really is coherent and focused on less versus more. And so, even at the middle school level, our schedule allows teachers to meet in their PLTs once a week. And I protect that time as much as possible with not having them sub on that day that their PLT meets. But then also pulling back from some of the other things to use grade level time kind of as that guidance for analyzing the data and going through the protocol. And then the middle schools also added Tuesday night faculty meetings on the first Tuesday of each month. And so a lot of that conversation also is centered around the formative assessments and looking at data.
Thank you for this presentation. We have heard about SAIL, and I think this helps us start to really have a greater understanding of all the work. I am really thrilled to know that the different administrators have been brought in, and I think it's really gratifying to know that Chris said that this is one of the better changes that we've. I mean, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but this was a really, yeah. I mean, it's so helpful, and I'm in a unique position. I have a student in our family at the elementary, one at the middle, and one at the high school level, and so I get to, as a parent, see these things like in real life. And so as I'm hearing in particular about middle school and the strategies and how they're being utilized for flex, you know, I think that's amazing. And then at high school level, I have a high schooler who just took mastery prep last week. And so I get a lot of feedback. She'll tell me and she'll say, you know, I don't like doing it because no one likes taking tests, but she has said that it's actually very helpful and that she is aware of the reason why they're doing it. And I think there's like real-time feedback on their scores. And so I think that's also meaningful because not only are the educators learning, but our students are aware and being able to have that ownership of their progress as well. So it was just great. I always get kind of excited when I hear things here that I've heard at home, or then vice versa when I go home and then it's mentioned to me. So, you know, thanks everyone who's gotten involved in this. It sounds like we're making a lot of progress, and I'm excited to see where we're gonna go from here. I love hearing that it's less, you know, it's less, not more, and it's really helping us get our focus narrowed. So, you know, awesome. Great work, everyone. We appreciate you. Okay. Moving on to review of current hiring practices. Scott Garner, Mr. Holzman.
Good evening, yeah. I'll get started. As you saw in your paperwork for tonight, I included a memo that kind of outlines the different types of staff and where they come from. And I'll just briefly go over this. So we usually bring to you staff assumptions in November. And what those staff assumptions do is allow us to follow board policy and make exceptions to board policy as it relates to the enrollment-driven staffing plan that the board will typically approve in March and or April at the latest. And what that does then is that staffing plan are basically the teachers and paraprofessionals that are tied to minutes within the school day and or the number of students in each classroom. And by minutes, I mean we have a formula that we use to calculate the minutes for our paraprofessionals, and we have a TPR that's defined by board policy and or an exception to board policy that the board does approve with the assumptions every year. So that's the enrollment-driven staffing plan. That process is pretty well-oiled machine. We then have another side to our staffing, which is the non-enrollment driven staffing plan. Essentially, those are the support staff members that also are very necessary for student success, but they're not dependent on the enrollment or minutes in the day for education to happen. So positions like that include academic learning coaches, dean of students, those are school counselors, social workers, administrative assistants, all different types of positions fall within that. And we usually call them non-certified, although some of them are certified. As you know, a school counselor needs a license from the DPI. We call them support staff as a general term. Regardless of that, any position that we have that's a permanent position in the district, we have a policy, obviously, that we post a posting. The supervisor or administrator creates a posting request. That goes down to my office, the Office of Human Resources. We review the posting request, and typically we'll post that position for a period of 7 days, at which time then we fill that vacancy. We did this memo to kind of help guide the conversation tonight per the board's request for more information. I'm open for questions. That support staff piece is also kind of discussed. I'll just kind of go a little bit further. As a director team, every year we look at the needs of the kids, of our students, and where we need to go for the district to improve. And so we constantly analyze how many academic learning coaches do we have? How many innovation specialists do we need? How many social workers, school counselors, those types of things that we need, and we prioritize accordingly to meet the needs of the kids. I'll stop there.
I think I would just add, as we look at the staffing assumptions for this year, there are probably a couple of key factors that are on our minds as we move forward. As you may recall, last year we had 10 elementary ESSER 2 positions, of which we had to reorganize within our system, and because that resources were going away. Additionally, this year, we have 17 FTE in ESSER 3 that we need to either reallocate into our current budget or reduce, eliminate. And those positions are anywhere from school social workers to PAC advocates. So some of them, we are in the mix right now of creating kind of a plan from the director's level of looking at how we might prioritize that. Then we'll get feedback from our building leadership. And again, trying to determine how we utilize our staff to provide the best outcome for our kids, and that's always the purpose.
Just one comment about the memo. When you post it for 7 calendar days, that to me just initially, a knee-jerk reaction is too short of a time frame. Do you get a good qualified pool of candidates with just posting the job for 7 calendar days?
That is our general practice. However, I will say, we do in some positions, and obviously the last year or so, it's been very difficult. So many of our positions are posted, they stay posted until filled. Yeah.
Thank you. So, the pool of candidates is the same, improving, I'm talking about the number of candidates, or is it getting even worse?
It's definitely not as great as it was 3 years ago, 4 years ago. I see it slightly improving. This year, we're very lucky, especially on the non-certified staff side, as we've been able to hire a lot more seemingly than in the past.
Okay.
I would say my impression is it's better this year than it has been probably the last 2 years prior. That's just my impression, and talking with both Nicole Conway and Bree Moran, they would also, I think, agree with me on that. Finding a good staff is always a challenge, and so that's why we're trying to, again, we're holding the job fairs. We're gonna do another one in the spring. We try to retain our subs by doing another sub training in January. And we do look to post not just on weekend, but we try to look to advertise beyond that. Like LinkedIn, for example, is a good one for us, and a few other HR sites that we look for.
So, given the difficulties of this, I think we talked at one time about changing our process a little bit, maybe streamlining the process, maybe kind of getting around that that weekend website is a nightmare.
Thank you.
Wait,
Yeah,
no, I'm
thank you for
done.
bringing that up. We're actually in the process of Mr. Holzman and Bree Moran kind of put together and Joyce Greenwood Ertz put together a hiring process for certified staff last year. At a certain point, we are working on the non-certified component to that now. And what you'll find in that, and I'm talking to principals about that briefly here this week, we have a plan in place to help move around that weekend piece. I can explain more of that once I get more information to the principals. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for this. This is really great. It's always good to kind of have this overview. I know that this was added to the agenda, and particularly because of the concerns that came from the board in the last, whatever that meeting was, when new positions were added, because hasn't been our practice, non-certified, right? It hasn't been our practice as a board to have to authorize those, and that isn't our policy to do that. But there was a bit of confusion and concern and question when we had the addition of, for example, the Bags of Hope position. And so the reason why this particular topic was added was to kind of, go over what our practices are, right? And so I want to make sure that we're not glossing over that, because then we're not really serving the purpose of adding this. And, I don't really know what the answer is, but, you know, I want certainly people to be able to weigh in if they have any feedback. I know for me in particular, generally, it hasn't been an issue. It's, I think that one in particular just took us by surprise. And this was a point that I brought up at our planning session. It was addressed, it came up at the finance committee a couple of times, and, you know, I will admit that I don't necessarily watch every single one of those committee meetings, and I understand if people might criticize me for not tuning in to every single one of those, but as a board member, I think my viewpoint is if there is really important information, we want to make sure that that is securely getting to the full board. Yes, it's our job at committee to work through these things and bring up ideas, but also not necessarily taking the board's knowledge out of that. If we need to be attending those meetings, then if everyone should be attending those meetings, I guess my point is then it should just be at the board. Because then what's the point of committee work? So, that was just kind of something that I brought up. Just from my feedback, you know, our board members are involved sometimes in multiple aspects of the school board. We have our regular board meetings, but then there might be additional strategic planning or PPC, or, you know, for myself, I am involved in the Janesville Area Council, PPC, and strategic planning on top of the regular school board. So it's a lot. It's a lot. So anyway, I just want us to make sure yeah.
Just wanted to add, thank you for those comments. I think a review of our current policy would acknowledge that there isn't anything we don't have a current policy that talks about new staff or hiring new staff. Our policy is very clear about hiring certified staff, and I think we've been very transparent and practical where staff goes to the consent agenda, and that is where all of the certified staff is put, and the policy also is clear about non-certified or support staff, in that to the extent that it says it will be directly reported to the Office of the Assistant Superintendent of Human Resources. That's what it says in our policy. And so in my short time here, if we have a termination, if we have a resignation, if we have a position that we have to add, we do that we have been doing that without informing the board, unless there would be something that would be of significant interest or need. Whereas when we have certified staff, resignation, termination, all those, that goes directly to the board because the statute says that's what you do, and that's been how we do that. I think the challenge is trying to balance the need as we think about the number of non-certified staff we have probably is equal to or a little greater than certified staff, and typically those are turned over at a much greater rate than the certified staff, and sometimes the timeliness of that is necessary. But I also think that we are aware now of, at least heightenedly aware of the board's interest if we're moving forward with, and I'll use a term different, because new is a little bit unique when I think about what is new. This district's been around for over a century now, and there's probably been a position that has been named or created over that period of time of which we would just say, well, in 1994 we had this position, right? And no one here remembers that, but a few people, and it's not new. So we definitely will keep that in mind. You know, an example that we had a conversation about this time last year was adding our position that we had to support our students and employees. And so that was a a larger discussion. We explained where the money was coming from, how we're gonna fund that, and where that came from. And we went, I think we started at the PPC committee, and then we had some feedback, and we went back again and had some conversations about that. To the same token, I would say, is we had a conversation, I'm pretty sure in board meeting, but maybe we talked a little bit about the change at the director level of HR manager versus, and again, we didn't go for it. I looked around and I saw a lot of head nods, so that's the direction we went. We didn't come back with a formal recommendation to remove that position and add something else. So I think at times, I feel like the board is right on the money with us, and there's a couple times where we probably got a little bit better at how we communicate that. And so as we move forward, there's a few things that I definitely are gonna come about for the board to consider. One is, in my time here, we have not had any layoffs. I shouldn't say any, I don't think we've brought to the board any layoffs. I don't know we have no interest in doing that, but we have 17 FTE that we have to figure out how we're gonna manage that in a budget that does not include an increase of 17 FTE, just moving our budget forward. So we're gonna have to reallocate what that looks like, which might mean we're gonna add this and not do this anymore, and then that's where we're gonna have to come to the board. Now, we'll talk about some of those pieces because they might be people in closed session, so that you can get a feedback about what that looks like, and there are statutes that we have to follow. But I would say many of those positions are not certified. They're in addition to, and some of them, I'll use, there'll be examples, I don't even want to mention any, because people will get there. But for example, there are some that I don't even think the people who are involved have any idea whether or not they're aligned to federal dollars or not federal dollars, if that makes sense. Like, the people don't know, because there are some in the positions in the district that are, and some in positions in the district that are not. Likely, we're gonna continue those, but we have to figure out how we're gonna balance that with our overall staffing mode, knowing that we wanna continue to keep our K-1, 2, 6, and 9th grade class sizes small, knowing that we have limited resources. So we are gonna be very creative and cautious about how we add. We have a really great information document database from the business office and HR that identifies every position by building and where the fund sources come from, because sometimes they come from title, sometimes they come from Fund 10, sometimes they come from Fund 27, and some of them you can't really mess with, so to speak, right? Fund 27 is special ed, Fund 10 we can move around, but if it comes from title funds, you can't supplement. So can't supplant, right? Instead of supplement. So we're going to work hard on it, and we'll bring anything that we have different. We may come up with an idea that we have based on how we're going to improve outcomes for kids, and that's our message. And I think the goal today was to have some conversation and feedback, and continue to have that if there is a practice that you would like to see different. As a superintendent, I would not recommend us adding non-certified staff to regular board approval, because that ends up, that HR list will be twice as long as what you see, because we turn those folks over. When you think about food service, paraprofessionals. I don't know if you get the email from Nicole Conway that has all the postings on a weekly basis, like, that's what you would be seeing. And sometimes we meet once a month, and we would need to meet to approve some of those positions sooner than that, because we can't wait. If a paraprofessional's gone, we need somebody in some of those cases in those spaces as quickly as possible. So, but we are here to do what the board wishes. So, if the conversation goes further and you'd like to see the non-cert staff treated somewhere different than we're doing now, in a practice or policy, then give us some feedback and we can work on that.
So helpful. Thank you. I mean, it's we can work together as a team, and I really respect that, you read the room and recognize, okay, we're good here, and that, it's always important that we're constantly reevaluating how we're processing and moving forward so that we're, you know, just doing the best that we can and supporting everyone. So I do think it would be interesting, not in like an approval level, but to sometimes see, you know, like, is there turnover, like in a particular area? That might be helpful for us to understand different hiring practices if we know, like, man, you know, something at the custodial level or foods, I don't know, but just anecdotal, because if you're wanting to increase something or whatever, then when we know that, it's good to know what's going on there.
So anticipating you might have that question, I did look at just some raw data from, as of July 1st, we've turned over 107, well, we've posted 170 positions just on the non-certified side alone. That does not include positions that already existed that people just moved into. It's just those different positions. So just to give you an idea, it's quite a bit.
It's a lot, and it's just never ending. So, you know, we're grateful for the work that everyone does in HR to get, you know, qualified and quality individuals here and keep them here too. Okay, great. Okay, well, we can move forward. Thank you so much. The next item on our agenda, 1.6, presentation of new course proposals for 2024-2025 course handbook. Chris Medenwald.
So good evening again. If you remember, a few months ago, Principal Lau and I came and we talked about a little bit about how scheduling works and course proposals and that sort of thing. So I'm not going to go through all those details with you. I will talk about it. It really does seem to be a year-round process for us. I'd like to say it's as delineated as it says on the screen. That's simply not the case. That would be ideal if we could eliminate every other distraction or anything else happening. That would be great. But in general, that's sort of the timeline that we'd like to do when we're thinking about new courses. However, sometimes things happen much, much faster than that. And sometimes we think we're going to do some things and then maybe at the last minute say, you know what, let's hold off on that and see what things are like the following year. So you do have a memo about new courses and courses that will be removed from the course guide, and then a boatload of course name changes. So I will get through some of those. But new courses, we have two that we are proposing. One is coaching and officiating. This is actually something that has been tossed around for a few years. There are a few high schools that are doing this rather successfully. And we believe that we have some students who would enjoy this. It would basically take us through some coaching basics skills for our students and also some officiating basics. And ideally what it would do, it would get our students to the point of if they want to officiate in a certain area, is helping them get licensed in that area and then get some experience in that area. So for instance, if it was soccer, right, pretty tough to do that, at certain times of the year, but there's also indoor soccer in several places if kids wanted to do that. Really anything that they're interested in, we want to help them get the skills and some practice and then actually get out and officiate. And honestly, there's some selfishness to this. We need coaches and officials. We just do. And so getting students at a young age to see, also as somebody who coached and officiated many moons ago for a long time, coaching will help you be a better official, and officiating will help you be a better coach. And seeing both sides of those things. So we'd like to do that. We are proposing it as an elective. However, if it would happen to be that a physical education teacher would teach it, we could count it as a Phi Ed credit. We're not proposing it that way because we can't count on it that way. So we don't want to put it in that way and then we can't make that scheduling work and then we don't offer the course because we said that. So this allows us to do that and allow some flexibility. The second course, we're actually not going to teach any of it ourselves, but we are going to offer the academy, and I'll go through what that really means. So the Highway Construction Skills Training Academy is really going to be about three different parts. One is the highway construction on-site training courses. It used to be called by the Department of Transportation the TRANS program because it was in transportation, and now I think they named it much, much better in that it's really about highway construction and what it is. And so those courses, I'll give you, for instance, one of the courses is flagging. right? That's one of the courses it would, right? It would be something that we would work with the Department of Transportation. They would come and help and go through that with our students of what flagging would look like. OSHA 10, there is a few different OSHA certifications. OSHA 10 is the beginning certification. The 10 honestly stands for hours, right? It's a 10-hour training, right? OSHA 30 is their 30-hour training program. And so that would be one of them. The operator engineer core courses, these are offered twofold. They are offered through Destinations Career Academy, which is online virtual academy, which we will have to subscribe to use. And as much as I'd like to say, well, we can do that easily through Arise Virtual Academy, that's simply not the case. It would still be a cost. We could do it through that, but we would still be paying either way. We're either going to, either Arise is going to pay Destinations or we're going to pay Destination, but somebody's going to pay them. And what Destinations has done is something that no one else has done, is they have worked with the operator engineers in Coloma at the local 139 to offer a bunch of virtual courses. The very first course is an overview of operator engineer courses. Then it gets into some specific things. The very last course is a pre-CDL course. And our students would be able to do all of that virtually. We would, I'll get into the last thing we're going to do, and the last thing is CPR certification. There's a few other things that we think that we'll ask our students to do with the academy, but they're all things we would ask them to do anyways to graduate. So things like making sure you pass a senior English course, making sure that you take either AVID or the freshman seminar, because there's some basic skills that we would want in there, making sure that you have your FIAD credits, those sorts of things that they would have anyways. The idea behind this would be that we would have students and we would assign an hour, we would assign a staff member to help them go through, because it's virtual learning, and have some assistance, but just as importantly, set up opportunities for these students to visit work sites. So we anticipate seeing a whole lot of Cullen and Rock Road sites to see some of this. And depending obviously on the time of year, there may be some other places they'll have to visit to do so. But what it will allow these students to do is, once they turn 18 and graduate, they could go get their CDL license, because they will have taken the CDL course. They will already be able to be employable in basic level skills, because they will have a flagging course, a crane safety course, right? Not a crane operator course, just crane safety of like, yep, I can flag cranes and do those sorts of things. It will also allow them, once they are employed at one of these companies, you will become an apprentice. And 3 of the courses in the operator engineer core courses that we would do through Destination Career Academy are all required in your apprenticeship. They would have 3 of them out of the way at hire. All right, so they would get a head start basically on their way to their journey worker license, right, after a certain amount of time. I was fortunate enough, we took a bunch of our staff members up to Coloma a few weeks ago, and the phrase that they use, and I never considered this, is the apprenticeship is the bachelor's degree for operator engineers. And the amount of time they have to do is really, really close when you start looking at the amount of time they have to put into work, the amount of training they have to do so. It really is very close to a bachelor's degree. The major difference is they barely have to pay for it, right? Much of that is done through, certainly once they're in the operator engineer, once they're in the union, that helps them, and most of their employers will help pay or pay for this to do so. So this is one of those things, if you remember, a few months ago, Chris Madke and I gave a presentation about some of the skills necessary and jobs and that sort of thing. This is a high need area. It really is, and not just in Rock County, but in the state of Wisconsin. And so we believe we can pull this off. We're modeling this after, we believe there's only one other school in the state that does this. They are not our size, so we will see if we can scale it up. To do so, we believe we can, and we believe this is the right thing to do for our kids and the right thing to do for our community. So those are the only 2 new courses we plan to offer. And like I said, the Highway Construction Skills Training Academy, we actually won't teach anything. We will likely ask that instructor to get up to Coloma and just do some basic training there, and they will do that. But as far as having to be able to be CPR certified, nope, we will work through the Red Cross to do that. As far as OSHA 10, that's an online training course. Everything else, we are just going to facilitate and help answer questions and make sure our kids are successful. So do you want me to stop there? Because I know there's, right, I've got a few more. Do you want to go, or do you just want to go to the end and do questions at the end? Yep.
Where was the origin? I mean, I love the Highway Construction Skills Training Academy, but where was the origin? What, did it come from, like a business education partnership conversation about the needs of our state and particularly our county?
So, nope, it didn't. It came a little bit from my fascination with cranes, honestly. And I kept talking to Chris Madke. I'm like, how does somebody do that? I'm almost 60 years old. I had no idea how to become a crane
Like
operator.
crane operator? It's
Yes.
a very high-paying job.
It is.
Yes, but
Yes.
it's also a very dangerous job.
Yes.
But yes, but that's why it's high-paying.
Yes. However, I didn't know how to, right? And so I said, well, if I don't know, how do our kids know how to get into these areas? So then we started working, and honestly, Chris Madke deserves a ton of credit for the work he did on this. And to figure out, well, I don't know what you do, and he worked with the Department of Transportation. That led him to another school district that is doing some things. He's had several conversations with them. That led us to take a whole group of people up to Coloma to see, well, is this even doable? Which, by the way, if you ever, like, I've told everybody, coolest field trip I've ever been on. So that's really where it was born out of, like, it was my own inadequacy of understanding how you would get in there and asking questions, and so we answered them.
Well, thank you for your honesty. I appreciate that, because curiosity is always a good thing, because it leads to maybe a great outcome or an opportunity for our kids. My second question is it sounds fascinating, but how are we going to get this out in front of our kids so that they know that this is a career pathway that's available to them and being offered to them, as opposed to, because kids don't read course
Yeah.
catalogs.
Yeah, so there's a few things that we know we have to do a little better job of there. One is we are completely revamping our academic and career planning guide this year. It will have a different look, hopefully a much friendlier look and an easier to use look. Again, we are modeling that. We've kind of looked around at some other folks that are about our size and how do they do it when they have multiple high schools, and we frankly thought that maybe some places might do something a little better than us. So we're going to steal it, borrow it, emulate it. How's that? Emulate it. Well, that's what we're going to do. So that's part of it, and we know that we need to get our staff in all of our academy models. We need to get that in front of kids in the classroom. That's where they hear it. We can have great websites and those sorts of things. Getting it in front of students when they're in the classroom in front of teachers they trust is what we have to do, and that's what we'll intend to do.
In thinking about students, is this the Construction Skills Training Academy? Is that going to be proposed at both of the brick and mortar high schools? Large
Yeah,
high
so
schools?
we're a little bit up in the air on what we'll do with that. It will depend on numbers.
Okay.
So it is possible that we will have to host that at one or the others due to numbers. We really, really want to run it. So that might be how we have to get there. Now, however, if we have 40 kids interested in it, then it looks like we're going to have 2 staff members and probably run, right? So a little bit of that, I'd like to say, ideally, we'd run it at both Craig and Parker. I also know that we will likely have some students at some of our charters that will be interested. We have a student right now at Arise Virtual Academy that is not going through this, but is going through the Operator Engineer core courses in Destinations Career Academy. And is going through that. So we have some students, all right, so he will have some of those opportunities available to him at graduation, just not some of the other things that we're hoping are a little more robust. So we would ideally like to run it at both Craig and Parker. If not, we will work around that. We have to do that in several other areas, and we'll do it in this area. The positive part of it is most of them are virtual courses, so it's possible we could do some things that way. We have had that discussion with both the principals at the high schools, and a little bit of it, right, until we know our numbers, we're not sure which problem we're solving.
Thank you, that makes sense. So you mentioned this Destination Academy. What's the cost involved with that program?
So right now, we would be able to get, basically with 10 licenses, they're about $250 a license for us to do per student. We would be able to do that at a semester cost, so that it is possible it's going to be a significant cost for us. But then I also will look at, some of our other courses have some, maybe not that cost, but per student cost on some things are somewhat high. So we believe that we can absorb that in some of the things we're doing, and we believe it's worth it. So we'll work around that. Ideally, what we'll do is we'll try to make sure that we have at least numbers in the 10, because 10 is where we get our break. So we'll get 10, and once we get to 10, we're like, we need 10 more. We need 10 more, not 3 more. We need 10 more. So that's what we'll work on.
Well, both of those classes sound really promising, and, you know, thanks to both you and Chris Madke for, you know, getting in and finding some unique opportunities for our students. I love it. I know that you really looked at what students' interests were, but also where, you know, what jobs are needed in our area, and our, you know, thinking back to a previous meeting that you referenced. So I think that's really awesome to see. These aren't just like willy-nilly decisions. Oh, that sounds like fun. There's such purposeful reasoning behind why we are adding certain classes, and it's really for our students and our community and our school. You know, I think about the coaching resource class. That's just great. So keep it up.
So how does this fit in with, you know, credits toward graduation?
Yeah, so we will assign credits based on the hours. So we believe right now that this will be a 4-credit academy overall. So it will fit in. They will be in the CTE area, so they'll all be elective credits.
Okay.
Right. The
And
other things that we expect obviously would stay. Right. We expect you to pass an English course. Well, that
Sure.
would be your English credit. That sort of thing.
And so the OSHA 10 is like maybe a semester credit?
Yeah,
or-
in this case, what we'll likely do is combine OSHA 10 and CPR certification, and we'll say, well, that was the highway construction skills safety portion and
I
that
see.
sort of thing. And so we'll assign
So
credits based
some
on
of
that.
them can be standalone, some of
Correct,
them need to be
correct.
combined?
Correct.
Okay. Great, thank you.
Right, and that's, part of that's just nomenclature and how we do that in the
Yeah,
campus.
yeah, I'm just thinking about, you know, there are a lot of kids out there that want to explore a lot of things. Unfortunately, there's not always room in the schedule to do that. And so, you know, so for a student that is, let's say that you got kids that want to take all those electives like band and art, right? And we want them to do that, but they're also interested in this, and they have run out of room in their schedule. Are there ways to do this, since it's virtual, outside of the class day?
Unfortunately, that would be one of those situations, and it wouldn't matter if it's a highway construction skills training academy. I wish every kid could take everything they ever wanted at the time it was offered. They're probably gonna have to make a choice.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, courses that were removed, if you remember as well, a few months ago, we talked about some courses we were considering moving and removing, and so we're gonna remove these from the course guide. It doesn't mean that we'd never teach them again, right? They don't get removed, right? We didn't say, well, we can never do that again. But I'll go through each one of them very briefly about why we're removing them and the reasoning. So advanced physical education, app development, introduction to mechatronics, and young historians we're removing because we haven't run them in, I believe, 5 years each. We just haven't had the numbers to run them. Unfortunately, app development and intro to mechatronic systems are Project Lead the Way courses. But right now, we are going to remove them in hopes that maybe we can focus in some other areas there, and if we can build up some of our engineering areas, maybe those courses would come back to the course guide. But right now, having courses that we haven't run in there really just bogs down the scheduling, right? Because then we're just moving kids, right? Saying, well, we're not running that at 6 kids, so we got to find them somewhere else to go, and that gets complex. Anatomy and physiology, which is a TC course, and microbiology, which is a TC course, are both being removed. We had discussions in our science department, so those are transcripted with Blackhawk Technical College. And Blackhawk is doing what they need to do as they are now a transfer institution. So those courses we typically taught in a year. At Blackhawk, those are semester courses, and they're requiring any high school, right, that is teaching them to teach them in a semester. Our instructors did not believe that was in the best interest of our students. Also, Blackhawk has some technology that we don't always have. They're able to do a lot of these. In both of those courses, their labs are virtual, right, with some software. And we could subscribe to the software. Our instructors felt like high school students probably need to do more hands-on labs, and in a semester wouldn't have that time. It's one of the reasons that we liked to draw it out, that we could supplement that over a year long and do so. So we didn't think that that was in the best interest of our students. We could come back and change that. I will tell you that there are high schools very near us that are dropping all of their TC offerings because of some of the stipulations of TC. And I will not say that that's Blackhawk is doing anything wrong with that. They're doing what they need to do as a transfer institution and as a higher learning agency. But those are two courses. All of our other TC offerings we believe would stay and want to stay. It's in those areas we didn't think that was in the best interest of kids. And then the last one on there is the finance, economics, and law of social justice. We have some other social justice offerings and didn't think it made sense, and we thought the other ones were a bit more robust. So those were all planned removal from the academic and career planning guide.
So I get why the anatomy and physiology class and microbiology class are not going to run again. I'm curious, though, for the student that is interested in that, will we just have like our own anatomy class?
Yes.
Okay, so
Yes.
there's.
We'll have an Nat and Phys, and it will, but it will be a year-long course. It just won't be a transcripted credit course.
Okay, great, thank you.
Yeah, and we actually have some other courses in the area of microbiology, just not microbiology that will. So it'll be, we believe we still have offerings for our kids. They're just not transcripted credit offerings. And then the last thing, I did not list them all on, but they all are listed in your memo. We made name changes to a bunch of CTE courses for two reasons. One, it helped us align better to when we were transcripting. Many of those courses end up being advanced standing courses at Blackhawk. And so we just wanted, our nomenclature, honestly, was confusing to make that look better. And so that's part of the reason. The other part is we changed some names because honestly, we weren't the same on both sides of the river. And so we just wanted to make sure that our naming conventions made sense as to what was even in the class sometimes. I do think the names change make more sense, like, oh, that makes sense, that's what I'm gonna take. And then we're renaming our freshman social studies course based on some of our changes to social studies. And you know, that goes along with our graduation requirement with the government course being a requirement. And so we're just making sure that we're staying in line with the State Department of Public Instruction. And I think that's all I had. Oh, I went black, Patrick.
This was a great presentation, so helpful, thank you.
Great.
Thanks. All right, 1.7, presentation and consider moving to full board for approval 2024, 2025, 2025, 26 school year calendars. Dr. DeGraff and Chris Menwald.
Yes, so tonight I want to share with you an update on the new upcoming district calendars for the 24-25 and 25-26 school years that we would like to move to the board for full approval tonight. So as part of the process of developing the district calendars, in your memo that you received, I kind of outlined the process that we followed. So I'm just going to highlight some of that key information from the memo as part of our development of the school calendar process. So I'll talk to you a little bit about the key stakeholders, the survey, some of our goals and considerations during the process. The key stakeholders that were all invited to be a part of the school district calendar committee are listed up here on the slide. We met in April of 2023, and then we met again in October and November. And so this represents the stakeholders that were involved in that process. Also, to gather additional stakeholder feedback, we sent out a survey, and we had to all district staff, certified and non-certified, and we had 662 respondents. And as far as the survey, it's a little bit different than surveys we've sent in the past around the calendar. They weren't picking survey, do you like calendar A or calendar B? It was more questions around, some of the feedback we received is, do you want that day before Thanksgiving off, or do you want that work day at the end of the trimester in November? And so, based on that survey feedback, it was all very helpful. And so we made adjustments to the calendar based on the direction of the survey feedback. So as far as the goals of the calendar, we wanted to make sure, and working with Superintendent Holzman, really wanted to increase those instructional days as well, that our students are attending school. We had, with our professional development days, we wanted to make sure that they were balanced throughout the year. We've also had feedback that sometimes there were too many at the beginning of the year. Other goals is looking at that summer school timeline of when it starts and ends in July, so that we are able to hire the teachers that we need to for summer school and to get as many students to enroll. We also tried to work with Rock County districts. We found that many did not have their calendars out yet. They were in the same process we were. And we also found out that it's not consistent across Rock County. So it's hard to align our spring break when there's multiple spring breaks even in Rock County. Another request from staff that we had is, they had shared that we many times have professional development on Fridays, and at the end of a challenging or long week, sometimes Fridays are hard for professional development, and would we consider Mondays? So you'll see in the calendar that we made a shift to having professional development days on Monday. So some of the considerations, and you can see in the calendar, and in the memo, it talked to you about the DPI, our state statute with instructional minutes. And so we have 190 contracted days, and this last calendar had 170 student instructional days. And so you have the 190 days you have to work between. You can't start until September 1st. And so it's, there's only so much flexibility within the school year to make those changes, as many people found out on the committee as well, too. So we were able to increase the number of instructional days. In the 24-25, we're at 172, and in 25-26, we're at 173 instructional days. So we were able to make that increase. And those instructional days have to come from professional development days as well. So we also did, in the past, in August, we've had up to 10 or 11 professional development days. In this calendar, we're down to about 7 or 8 professional development days in August before school starts. And also making that adjustment again this year, in the next 2 years. So students still start on September 1st, but we're doing those orientation days prior to September 1st so we can start instruction on day 1. And some of the feedback too from parents is that, for example, when we talk about consistency of days with professional development, November felt like we didn't have a full week the entire month. So if you look at the calendar, you'll see that November we have one professional development day, and then we obviously have the week of Thanksgiving. So we made that adjustment. January is a little bit, you have a end of semester, you're coming back from the holiday or winter break, and then we do have MLK Day, but we will have that as a staff day, but no students. So we feel that in the, Chris and I facilitating the calendar committee, that we tried to get as much stakeholder feedback as possible. whether it's through surveys and staff, and other feedback that we had received, and really that goal of increasing instructional time for our students. Although this calendar is not perfect, I don't know that there is a perfect calendar. We know that there'll still be challenges or frustrations with the calendar, but we feel that, we spent a lot of time gathering feedback, working with teams to ensure we had a calendar that best met the needs of our staff, students, and family in the district. So that's kind of an overview of the two calendars.
Maybe you had already mentioned it before, but is there, because maybe my eyes were wandering over the calendars, but is there a target number of days you want for professional development? Is it like between 15 and 20? Because because one year is 15 and the other is 14. Is there a target that you go after?
Well, I would like more.
Yeah, I know you would, but I'm just asking generally, do you?
Yes, I think probably 15 is closer to that target. It's just the constraints of the 190 days and starting after September 1st. I'd
Yeah.
really like to have a little bit more throughout the year, so it's not so heavy at the beginning.
Yeah.
It's just hard for anybody's capacity to do that much professional learning. We do try to provide some days where teachers just have time to work in their classrooms and planning time and things like that as well to balance that out. But it's really helpful to almost have like one day a month where you can have professional development. It's close to that, but
Okay.
we didn't quite get there.
I do also want to thank you for pushing, that seems very logical, so I'm really glad you surveyed the staff, because to me, we've all had really long weeks, and then when you have to have a professional development and you're trying to learn something and it's a Friday, it just doesn't soak in like it does when you're fresh on the start of the week. So I really do appreciate that you did that survey to glean that information from them and make that adjustment. So I just wanted to say thank you for that too.
Thank you. I don't think I mentioned this too, but another thing is that you probably heard feedback from staff was that we didn't have, work day scheduled at the end of the year. And sometimes that was challenging for closing up your classrooms, and so we did make that adjustment as well. It's either a half day or full day at the end of the year as well, so.
Awesome, thank you. I know you, it's probably like nerve-wracking now, like when this is gonna go out, so I can imagine that you'll be glad when this is all signed, sealed, delivered, and people are no longer talking about it. It's wonderful to see how many different people were part of the stakeholder meetings. I know that you were a part of that, so thank you for your time, Lisa, and John. It's just really important that and I think it's important for our educational community for everyone to recognize that everyone plays an important role and to have that voice. So that's great to see. I had questions before the meeting, and Gretchen over here was filling me in. So this will be great, and I think having such a thorough, I feel like schedule, it was all done by the time I started my first term here. And so it's very informative for me to be a part of this process. I don't know what you may have done differently compared to the past, but I know I feel very well poised to be able to communicate with the community should questions come up, and really be able to speak on why certain decisions were made. So thank you for this thorough presentation and all the work. Yeah.
Do we need a motion to send this on to the full board? I'd like to move that we send this calendar, the calendars onto the full board for its consideration.
I'll second that.
I don't know if we need to vote. Is that, I don't even know.
It says action
It says
possible.
Okay, all right, awesome. Okay,
Can I ask one more
Yeah,
question?
question.
Just visually, when you look at the 2025, 2026 calendar, the reason why you go so late in June is because of Christmas, right?
Yes, so that was a survey question as
Yeah.
well. Do you want to,
Have a longer holiday break, or do you want, and then go farther into June 10th, or have a shorter, yeah, there's a trade-off.
right, it was a really unique timeframe for
That year,
winter.
it's just the way the holidays fall, and so you have to make a decision. Okay,
Yeah, so we
thank
went
you.
with the majority.
Yeah.
Okay, so we had our motion and second. No further questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, we're all in favor, no opposed. Okay, and then the last item on our agenda to talk about is review Neola policy revisions and consider moving to full board for adoption. Mr. Holzman?
You should have two policies in your packet, and so I guess I would just pause and see if there's any questions. Those are really just coming straight forward from Neola.
I make a motion to approve both policies.
I second.
Any other questions, comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Since there's no one else here, it's passes, moves to full board. Wonderful. Okay, thank you. Announcements, updates. Well, we have our planning session meeting for PPC next Monday at 9:30. So if there's anything that anyone would like us to be discussing, please get in touch. We have an awesome schedule. We're really have wonderful things planned out for pretty much the rest of the school year, at least a number of months. So we're moving along. It's been a great group to work with. And then our next meeting is in January. Gretchen, do you have that date? I can.
It's supposed to be on January 1st if you look at the
Yeah,
calendar,
we're
so
not doing that.
We're probably
We're
gonna
not
have to
doing
move
that.
it to the 8th.
Yes.
Or something else, right?
Yeah, and so we'll be having our planning session for February that same morning, and then we'll have our PPC meeting that evening. So just so everyone can mark their calendars for that. Okay,
Great.
awesome. Any other questions? All right, I adjourn the meeting. Thanks.
When did you-